Let's welcome in the league legend and Queensland coach, his very own podcast, Billy Slater's here. Hello, Bill.
Good morning, Mark. How was your weekend? I saw you down at Shark Park yesterday.
Mate, it was fantastic, and the Sharkies management rolled out the red carpet for us. We had beef brisket, we had donuts, the big man was happy, and so was my waistline, mate. So it's always great getting down to Sutherland Shire, and the Sharks were good.
How'd you go getting up those stairs? There was about 1,000 flights of stairs. No elevator there anymore.
No lift. So, maybe that's why they brought all the food up, just to smother the fact that nothing worked out there. But it was a great day and a great crowd. And young Sam Stone Street on debut. What about in that southwestern corner, Billy? He was mobbed by all his friends and family. It was great.
Yeah, well, that's where he scored his first try in the NRL. And I thought he had a really good moment before that too. He took a high ball, sailed above Val Holmes and came down, earned his team a penalty. So he'll wake up this morning with a big smile on his face. He'll be a little bit sore and tender, but you earned that, and I'm sure he'll be pretty proud of himself. Hey, look, I'm feeling a little bit underdressed here. I'm going to have to get some jerseys up in the background. You got the Rabbitohs jersey there, the Australian jersey, all signed up. So,
well, I must admit, this is the first time I've done the podcast from home today, and given the way the bunnies are travelling, I thought about getting rid of the South one. But there's an outrage. I went to a charity function and bought the Australian jersey, Billy, signed by all the legends. No Slater. What's doing?
You're joking.
Next time I see, I need a signature, okay?
Mate, I'm going to send you a Polaroid. Just stick it up in the corner there. I'll even sign it for you.
Mate, obviously plenty of Origin news around, and that's where we've got to start. I think a lot of our listeners will want to know your thoughts on a few things. A broad question to start off with. You were with Michael Maguire last week at the MCG to launch the ticket sales and effectively the series. We're getting closer, aren't we, mate?
Yeah, it's not too far away, but there's still a lot of footy to be played before we can start building our team and working out exactly how we're going to play and that sort of stuff. But yeah, we had the launch last week down at the MCG, and it's such an iconic stadium, the MCG. It's very different to our home up there in Suncorp Stadium. The atmosphere is different, but it's very unique. I got the opportunity to play down in Melbourne at the MCG for Queensland, and you just remember running out in front of 100,000 people. And we're 5 weeks away before both teams go into camp, and she's all on again. What an exciting time of the year.
Yeah, bring it on. Are you worried about some of your injury concerns at this point, Billy, given we've got Tabuai, Fido, Big Tino, Jai Arrow, Tom Gilbert sidelined at the moment? Is it causing you a few headaches and sleepless nights?
Well, what I've learned over the last little period, Mark, is try not to worry about what you can't control. And these are things way out of our control, and they're even out of the players' control. The first and foremost thing, I feel for the players. I know how much they put into their careers, these players. I know how much they have a desire to be involved in the Queensland team. So now I've been one of those players that's been injured and missed out on playing for Queensland due to injury. So that's where my heart lies. I do feel for the players because I know how much it means to them. Where there's injuries, others will get opportunities. Like I said, there's still plenty of football to be played. There's still plenty of time for some players to get over their injuries and be available for selection. So, I try not to worry about what I can't control, and there's a fair bit that I can't control.
I know you and Salty last week spoke about the big debating point at the moment, how you get Reece Walsh, how you get Kalen Ponga, how you get Ben Hunt. I mean, all these players into the one Origin team. Kalen Ponga, though, yesterday has picked up some sort of foot injury. Have you been on the phone? Have you heard anything in relation to how serious this injury might be for Kalen?
No, I haven't. And to be honest, I haven't watched that game in its entirety because I was on the broadcast with Channel 9 at the Cowboys-Sharks game yesterday afternoon. So I'll go back over the next couple of days and revisit that game. And I did see a little bit of Kalen sort of trying to get through the game. We all thought it was his hip that sort of had pulled him up, but he's obviously picked up a foot injury. Look, we don't know how serious it is, and sometimes when you have a run of injuries like this, they can accumulate, and if the foot isn't all that bad, it might be handy for Kalen to have a couple of weeks on the sideline to not only get over his foot injury, but his hip pointer as well. I've had a hip pointer. I know how tender they are and how hard they are to play with. He's fingers crossed that it's not all that bad, because not only for Kalen, but for the Newcastle Knights, who are in a little bit of a hole at the moment, that certainly need their star and their captain.
That fullback jersey, Reece Walsh, he owned it last year in the series. He's picked up where he left off in the NRL this year. He put on another masterclass for the Broncos on Saturday night. You must be impressed as not only a champion fullback of our game, but also a bloke who's had plenty to do with Reece Walsh over the last couple of years.
Yeah, like everyone, I really enjoy watching Reece play and watching the stars of our game play. And the one thing Reece did is what he was in the game. He certainly made a few errors, but you're going to get that with Reece because he brings so much to his team. He brings so much excitement to the game, and he was using his strengths, which is fantastic. So it was great to watch Reece. It's only his second game back from that cheekbone injury. He had a little bit of time out. He had a few games off, and the more footy he plays, the more balanced his game will become. And we forget that he's only 21 years old, and he's still very young and immature in his development. But he's going to get better over time and going to get more measured with his game and with experience. So you're right. He was extremely influential last year in the State of Origin series in game 1 and 2. And the other guy, Kalen, he was, there was no more influential player in season 2022 in that series. So, we don't know who's going to be available, in 5 weeks' time, but, just got to sit back and watch them play and help them build their game.
At this stage, I'm just getting my pen here, Billy. I'm not a journalist, I'm a broadcaster, right? So my number 1, Queensland, am I writing Reece's name in just yet or not?
You don't write any names in just yet. You write them in 5 weeks' time.
He's got the fullback position, though, hasn't he, Billy? He's unbelievable, this kid.
Sorry, just cut out then, Mark.
I'm trying, folks. I'm trying. He doesn't give too much away. Look, the other Queenslander that I wanted to ask you about, mate, Pat Carrigan. He's playing like a man possessed at the moment, whether it's a Broncos jersey, whether it's a Maroons jersey. He's one of the premium front rowers in our game at the moment.
Well, he's showing great leadership. With no Payne Haas at the moment out with an injury, he lost Thomas Flegler, his other front row sidekick from last year. He's showing great leadership, and the number one trait of a great leader is performing their role in the team, and that's what he's doing above everything else, above the communication, above helping other players. You're getting your job done consistently well every week, and that's why he's showing great leadership, and he's leading from the front. He's playing 80 minutes for the Broncos. He got an early mark on the weekend, but that was only because they were in a really good position on the scoreboard, which he helped influence. He's a wonderful player, a real leader. He's always had that great quality in his game, even from a very young age, and he's an integral part of that Broncos side. And when they get Payne Haas back and Adam Reynolds, well, Pat Carrigan is going to have a little bit less weight on his shoulders, but his performance is first class, and that's where it all starts for leadership.
Are you finding everywhere you go at the moment, Billy, people are stopping you and saying, mate, you got to pick this bloke, you got to pick... I mean, Daryl Broman was in the commentary box with me yesterday. You walked past, and big man who played 2 games for the Maroons, he said, Billy, you got to do this, you got to do that. It's just Origin. I mean, it's the wonderful thing about the great 6 weeks of our game, and that is the Origin period.
It is, and to be fair, when they're Queenslanders, I do listen. It's important because at the end of the day, this is Queensland's team. It's not my team. It's not even the players' team to a certain extent. It's Queensland's team. It's the people of Queensland, and Darryl Broman is not just a Queenslander. He's an ex-Queensland player. He's a Fog, and it's important to listen to everyone's opinion. And that's what makes our game so great. That's what makes this team such an inspiration, is because people care about the team, and they have those conversations. People up there in Mackay and Townsville and Mount Isa, that they'll all be sitting around the smoko room talking about who their team's going to be, and who should be in and who shouldn't be, and that's what makes it so great.
Obviously, your commentary box for Channel 9 is a lot more professional than ours, Billy, on the continuous call team. You mentioned the word Fog, former Origin great. Well, there was another Fog in our commentary box yesterday, big man had a lot to eat yesterday and let one rip. I've never seen people from a commentary box run. I mean, it's hard enough calling the football and then the big man's letting one go next to you. We crossed down to Piggy on the sideline so we can go get some fresh air.
Yeah, they're only really small boxes up there at Shark Park as well, and the windows don't open. I don't know if yours know. Some of the commentary boxes, you can open the windows and get the atmosphere and a bit of breeze in, but
not good.
Not
anyway,
Shark
big
Park.
man, we salute you. We love you. Back to the NRL, mate. Jack Hetherington, he might be in a bit of strife over an incident in the tunnel yesterday at a core stadium. I'm sure you've seen a bit of the vision that's doing the rounds, the Newcastle-Canterbury game. It's like he waited for Reid Marnie after they both got sin-binned in the tunnel, and then he's sort of dancing around like he's Tim Zoo, and then sort of shoves Reid Marnie out the way. What's the go here? What did you think, Bill?
Well, first, he's way above his weight sort of division there, taking on little Reid Marnie. But look, does this remind you of something? I remember playing a game midway through my career at Brookvale Oval, and Adam Blair and Glenn Stewart got sent to the sin bin. And actually, the referees have done a really good job since that moment, because the referee on that occasion sent them both to the sin bin in pretty short time. So Glenn Stewart wasn't even actually off the field by the time Adam Blair was walking off also. And they actually met before they got to the dressing sheds and obviously started what was the Battle of Brookvale. So it's interesting. I think this is where an NRL official needs to go with the player and make sure that they go into the dressing room and not come out. So, yeah, it wasn't great scenes. I don't think there was anything too bad that happened, but I think we can avoid these situations.
Might be a simple please explain from Graham Annesley to the clubs involved. Yeah. I don't think.
And look, it's a tough game. Like it's an emotional game, and sometimes it's heated. Like it's a physical battle out there, and sometimes things spill over like this. And I don't think any punches were thrown or anything really bad happened. But I think there's I'm sure the powers to be in the NRL will look at this and go, well, how can we avoid it? And I'm sure they will in the future.
Just on that game, given you haven't seen it in its entirety, I just want to single out the coach, because we talk about coaches that are under pressure, and that's just the nature of the beast these days. But I reckon Cam Ciraldo deserves a rap, Bill, because he's really turned things around. He recruited all those players in the off-season, and he's got them improving every week, and that was a good win over the Knights yesterday.
Well, he spoke about in the post-match press conference and referred to the last time they played Newcastle and they got beaten 66-0. It's been a big turnaround, and they've been competitive against the best teams in the competition this year. You think of the Melbourne Storm, who was sitting equal first. They went right down to the wire down in Melbourne. So they're getting a lot right in terms of the fabric of the game and the foundation of the game. And I still believe they're lacking a little bit of top quality class in terms of key positions, but what they're doing well, it puts you in a competitive environment to compete with anyone. And Cameron Ciraldo has certainly done that. He's going through the tough times. He's probably still going to go through a couple more tough times, but you've got to stick. You've got to stick strong. He has a vision. He knows where he wants his team to get to, and I'm sure they'll get there. They're working really hard, and they're doing a great job.
We go up to Darwin Friday night. It was another very, very warm night. Brad Fittler came onto the radio to preview this game, and he'd spoken to Danica Mason in Darwin, and Danica said she was sweating like a pig. And what came from that conversation is we realised that pigs don't sweat. They don't have sweat glands. So there you are.
Really?
Some pointless information that you learn on the Billy Slater podcast. Yes.
There you go.
Yep. Dr. Rob Zammit, our resident vet on 2GB, told us that pigs don't actually sweat. So that's term sweating like a pig doesn't necessarily mean you're sweating profusely. But it was great to see all the bottles lined up in front of Brad Arthur on what was a warm night. He's under a bit of pressure, the coach. Can they keep referring to the fact that Mitchell Moses isn't there at the moment, Billy, or have they got some issues to deal with at the Eels, given they conceded 9 unanswered tries?
No, absolutely some issues, because Nathan Cleary, who is arguably the best player in the competition, he hasn't been at the Penrith Panthers for the best part of a month, and they seem to be doing okay. There are certainly some issues at at Parramatta and alarming issues. Their coach, he didn't miss his team in the post-match press conference. He called them a part-time football team. That's not the first time he's referred to that. I remember a couple of years ago he made that exact same comment. And he said that attitude, it's a decision what attitude you turn up with. And, even referred to the team giving up in the second half. When the heat really came on, and pardon the pun, it was hot up there. But when you're in those conditions and you're in that environment and you play football, it just puts you under pressure quicker. And they couldn't handle the pressure. Look, they played against a team that is in their second year in the competition, so they're still building their depth, the Dolphins. They had no Flegler, no Farnworth, no Kafusi, no Hammer. They didn't even have their coach. And they crumbled to that pressure against that team. They had to get an NRL exemption to play a player that was outside the top 30 in Trey Fuller. Like that, that's alarming what's going on at Parramatta. And I'm sure they are addressing it. Footy clubs are very honest these days. And I'm sure they're looking at themselves with the same questions as we're looking at them with. But Brad Arthur, he will be honest. He was honest in the public, and you can times that by 10 what he's going to be in the meeting room, because if you didn't miss him in the public, you won't miss him in the meeting room.
Absolutely. Roosters Melbourne, your boys got the cash in this game, and Trent Robinson had a bit of a blow up at the end of the night in relation to the driver from Nelson Asafa Solomona on Elisa Katoa, who scored the try. The NRL has backed the bunker over that decision. But I wanted to ask you about this disruptor rule, because, I heard Graham Annesley say last week, Bill, that the referees need to look at the eyes of the player. They need to look at all of these identifiers to determine whether the player is a disruptor. Gee, I think it's unfair on the referees. What are your thoughts on this new rule?
Yeah, I think it's hard on the referees. I think the referees do a really good job. But to bring all these new interpretations into our game, I went pretty hard on the Sunday Footy show. I just think it's unnecessary. I don't think it's necessary to put any more guidelines around the referees to determine whether a player has intent to go for the ball or not. They get it right the majority of the time. And they have a good understanding of when a player has genuine intent to go for the ball, or whether they're interfering with the opposition player, whether it be an obstruction, whether it be a disruptor, all these things. If you interfere with the other player competing for the ball and you're not competing for the ball, look, you don't have to catch the footy. There's no rule in you have to catch the footy or go to catch the footy. You can tap it back. You look at that game on Thursday night, the Melbourne Storm and the Roosters, there was 5 tries scored. They all came off kicks.
Yeah.
Every try came off a kick. So it's a crucial part of the game. If you're genuine with your attempt to go and compete, well, play on. You don't need all these guidelines around. I just think it's unnecessary to actually create confusion, not for just the referee, but the coaches. We've got Trent Robinson sitting in a post-match press conference talking about, he was a disruptor. He didn't do this because that's what the NRL came out and said in the preseason. Like, if they interfere with the player and they're not genuinely competing, well, it's a penalty. And they get that right most of the time. Don't overcomplicate the game.
Yep. We go to Cbus Super Stadium. This game was played on Saturday night. Defence went out the window on this one. It was a high-scoring game, and Manly beat the Titans. There were plenty of points. My voice was gone by the end of it, calling all of those tries. The Titans, they're coming close, but they just can't get themselves over the line, can they, Bill?
Well, like my father always said, they think defence is something you put around your house. So
I like that.
Defence was certainly optional in this game, especially in the first half. It was something like 46 points scored in the first half. It might have been 22-24 or something at half time. Like, it was very entertaining to watch. And to be honest, after 10 minutes, I thought Manly by how much? It was 10-0 after 10 minutes, and Tom Trbojevic was on. Daly Cherry Evans was playing outstanding, and I just thought they were going to run away with it. They've got this style, Manly, that they use the football, they use the full width of the field, and it can really do some damage. but it's a little bit high risk footy as well. So, if they get their balance right, they're a team, and I feel that they can push into a top 4 team, which actually gives credit to the Titans to fight their way back and be in the finish. They've done that 2 weeks in a row. They did it last week against Canberra down in the nation's capital, which isn't an easy place to go. And then they've backed that up with another tough effort. They just haven't got the wins on the board. They haven't got the results to show for it. But they're fighting hard, and if they keep that attitude up and they just keep working on the little parts of their game, their first win of the season isn't too far away.
Hey, speaking of the nation's capital, Jamal Fogarty, torn bicep, we're told, so he's facing an extended stint on the sidelines. Reports today that KO Weeks will replace him in that playmaking role for the Canberra Raiders. But to lose your main halfback for what's going to be the majority of the regular season, that's a bitter blow for Ricky and the Green Machine, Bill.
This is a tough one. We thought Jack Whiten moving on at the end of last year was going to be tough, which it was. But Ethan Strange has been fantastic, but he's had an experienced and a dominant halfback inside him doing a great job with his kicking game and his game management. Look, Jamal Fogarty, although he's not regarded as the top elite halfbacks of our competition, he is hugely important for what the Canberra Raiders are about and what they're doing. And you're going to have 2 young, inexperienced halves. And, Ricky Stewart has already referenced the patience that he's going to need, with some of these young players. And I'm sure we'll talk about, the young fullback that had a pretty tough night up there in Brisbane on Saturday night. But yeah, it's going to be a hard road for the Raiders without Jamal Fogarty.
Well, as a champion fullback that you once were, Bill, what would be your advice to young Chevy Stewart? Because he was obviously under the pump. He made some critical mistakes in that game. Ricky's made mention of what he said to the young bloke. What would be your advice to young Chevy Stewart at the Green Machine?
If I was the coach, I'd just tell him that he's playing fullback next week. That'd be my first thing I'd be telling him. I'd say, you're the fullback next week. I said, all right, so let's go and work on your game. Let's go and put a smile on your face and go and have some fun. He's a tough kid. Like you don't go through that and still stand there swinging at the end of the game and putting your body on the line like he does if he's not a tough kid. He's 18 years old. He's just out of high school. We've all been through these days. Whether it's your second game in the top grade or whether it's 2 years later, they come, they happen, and he'll grow from it. He'll learn from it. There's no amount of advice that will benefit him more than going through what he went through on the weekend. And, he'll be okay. He's going to be okay. The sun will come up. He will move on and he'll be a better player for it.
All right. One last one, Bill. The Cowboys. We started the podcast talking about the Sharks and Stone Street. But what do the Cowboys need to fix off the back of yesterday's performance? Because they repeatedly shot themselves in the foot and they didn't look like scoring for long periods of that game, and it was a heavy defeat to the Sharks.
Their coach, Todd Payton, said before the game he wanted to see them get comfortable in the cycle of the game, and that's exactly what they didn't do. And that cycle of the game didn't break from the Sharks for probably half an hour. They were perfect. The Cronulla Sharks actually applied pressure in the cycle of the game in a perfect manner for the first half an hour of that game. And the Cowboys, they fought a little bit, and then they just broke. And it's the cycle of the game that is getting the Cowboys at the moment. We all know how brilliant they are and, some of the class that they have in Scott Drinkwater and Holmes and Nanai and all these players. But it's the cycle of the game that they need to get, like their coach said, get comfortable in. It's the tough teams that are there at the end of the year. It's the tough teams that you look at Penrith's game. Penrith are the best at just staying. They're happy to win 2-0, the Penrith Panthers. They're happy to win 4-0. They don't care about points. All they care about is pressure and building pressure. And, the teams that can build it, the teams that can absorb it, are are the best teams in the competition, and that's the growth of the Cowboys. That's where they need to grow.
All right, Bill, let's get into your Billy M Awards as we welcome our listeners back to the Billy Slater Podcast. The most impressive team from round 7. Who caught your eye? Great man?
Well, we just spoke about them a little bit before. The Dolphins to go up to Darwin, undermanned with 4 of their star players. You think of Hamiso, he's been so good for them this year and the last 18 months. Flegler, Farnworth, and Kafusi. There's so much experience that was missing. And to go up there and score 44 points against a team that everyone regards as, they should be playing finals, the Parramatta Eels, but to go up there in those conditions and perform the way they didn't even have their coach in the coach's box. Christian Wolf had to take the reins. So I thought the Dolphins were the team of the weekend. The Sharks were great yesterday, but the Dolphins for me.
Dolphins, well deserved. What about the most impressive player out of the 7th round of the comp, Bill?
Yeah, this was a tough one. Look, Nico Hines was great yesterday, but I'm going to go with the little fullback from the Brisbane Broncos, Reece Walsh. It wasn't his perfect performance. It wasn't even his best performance, but I feel it was the best performance of the weekend. And heavily involved. He looked so fast and brilliant at times. Still wasn't perfect, like I mentioned, but I just thought he was very influential. Ezra Mam helped him out with a lot of kick chases and that sort of stuff. But Reece Walsh, the player of the weekend for me.
Well, I hope you haven't deducted a point from Nico after he gave you a little sledge in that interview prior to the game where you've lost my number, Bill.
He texted me after the game, actually, so he's still got my number.
They're all good. They're all good, the former Melbourne boys.
That's why he didn't get any points.
Let's get into the listener questions. First one from Halps, who says, "Hey, Billy, in terms of the game's best halfbacks in the NRL right now, where would you rank Jerome Hughes? For me, I have him second behind Cleary." That question from Halps, Bill.
Yeah, I think there's 3 top elite, top shelf halfbacks in our game at the moment, and they're all the representative halfbacks. You've got the Queensland halfback in Daly Cherry Evans. I think he's playing as good as he's ever played. Obviously Nathan Cleary, the New South Wales halfback. He's you don't really need to talk too much about him. We all know how consistent and brilliant he is. And Jerome's a New Zealand halfback. So they're probably the 3 dominant representative teams, in the NRL. And those 3 halfbacks, they steer the ship. So I think he's right up there with those guys. Some of his strengths are better than the other 2. His running game, you would argue that is better than Nathan and Daly's. So everyone's got slightly different strengths. He was a fullback at one stage, and to mold himself into a game managing halfback, trying to manage the likes of Cameron Munster outside him, that's chirping in his ear 3/4 of the game. That's the area that he's improved in, and he's done a great job. He controls the kicking game for Melbourne, and you just have to think back to that game last year for New Zealand against Australia in the final. He was exceptional. So, right up there. I agree.
Good stuff. Thank you, Halps, for your question. By the way, Billy Slater Podcast at 9.com.au if you've got a question for Bill. Billy Slater Podcast at 9.com.au. Second question comes from Mark. He says, "Hi, Bill. Love the show. Do you think right now we are in the golden age of fullbacks? And if so, why do you think there are so many great fullbacks in the game at the moment?" That one from Mark.
Yeah, look, I think we're always going to be in a golden age of fullbacks. It's a highly influential position because of the freedom that you have and how you can inject yourself into the game. You can decide where to be. You're not pigeonholed into any sort of position on the field. And absolutely, I think it's a very competitive position, but it always has been. I remember, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, the likes of Inglis, Stewart, Hayne, Boyd, Barber, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck. So there's always going to be a group of fullbacks in every era that are elite. And I think that's just the reflection of the importance of the position.
Good stuff. Well, thank you to all of our listeners for their questions. Keep them coming. Billy Slater Podcast at 9.com.au, and we'll pose those questions to Bill next week on the podcast. Well, Billy, before we go, I thought we'd dedicate a little bit of time to the ANZAC round because you had the privilege of playing on the most important day on the Australian calendar, a day for us to pause and reflect on the men and women who served this country and fought for the freedoms that we enjoy today. But not only that, to acknowledge the role that our servicemen and women continue to play on the battlefields, in wars around the world, like in Afghanistan. This is such a special day. And obviously the Dragons Roosters is the big one on Anzac Day. But the Storm, they've got the Rabbitohs. Usually they would play the Warriors in a game. But it's a little bit different this year. What's the occasion like as a player to stand there, to listen to the moment's silence and to listen to the last post with your teammates?
The two words that come to mind are honoured and privileged. I just think it's a great honour and a privilege to create the entertainment for that great day. It all starts at the dawn service where we all pay our respects to the fallen diggers first and foremost, and then the current people who are keeping us safe and are at the front line of defence, for our country. And it would be a tough job to go overseas or even to fight in Australia. And so I just think it's a great privilege to create the entertainment and to dip into that spirit that the Anzac fought with, and to do that against a team from New Zealand, which the Melbourne Storm have traditionally done. It's a bit different this year where the Storm are playing the Rabbitohs, but to have the New Zealand Warriors involved in a game, I think that's really important. They play the Titans on Anzac Day over in New Zealand, which is great because sometimes it's easy to forget the New Zealand part of the Anzac because we live in Australia, but they were our brothers and sisters and our teammates, going over to war back in those days. So I think that's an important part to recognise and remember as well.
Do you find too, Billy, as a father of two kids now, that that the younger generations really have an appreciation for this day as well? Because one thing that I take from our broadcast on Anzac Day on the radio is when I sit there in the commentary box and look downstairs, you've got younger generations wearing the war medals of their grandparents and, leaving the ground, you've got the kids with their parents and then their grandparents. It's generations and generations who are obviously going to the dawn service. They'll go to the march in the CBD, then they'll go along to the footy and they really make something of Anzac Day and it's a chance for them to reflect on what has happened in the past.
Yeah, it's passed down through generation. And I think that's a great thing. It brings our country together. This is more a united front than Australia Day. There is still some conflict around Australia Day, and I can understand that. But Anzac Day, everyone is one, and we get to appreciate our country. We get to give our thanks and remember and send our condolences to the people who have served for our country, to what our country is today. And I think that's a great thing. And, I love the feel of a united sort of feeling around Anzac Day. And there's no other stories around it like there is around Australia Day. So, I think the more we are as one in this country, the better it is. But it's a very special day. And, it's been an honour to play on this day.
Yeah, and it was a fantastic chat yesterday on the Sunday Footy Show and Andrew John's award-winning segment, Turn It Up. You were there with Freddie, and Heston Russell was on the panel. And, I mean, they're the real heroes, aren't they? They're the real heroes.
Absolutely. And for Heston to talk about the fact that he's had suicidal thoughts post coming back from what he's experienced in the Army, and that he has lost more comrades due to suicide than he had due to the war that he had been involved in. That's alarming. So, I'm sure there are things that we can put in place to help our veterans that come back from this environment. I've been to the United States before, and the one thing that they do really well is they appreciate their servicemen and women you think about going to the airports, they get priority boarding, and it's just that acknowledgement over the PA system at the airports of servicemen and women get to board first. And, that's just bringing things to the front of your mind rather than pushing them to the back of your mind. And everyone in that airport just acknowledges, okay, yeah, that's right. People are still fighting for our country. People are defending our country. So I think there are certainly things that we can put in place and we can learn from other countries and how to celebrate our servicemen and women.
Yeah, absolutely. And, of course, we've got the Royal Commission at the moment into veteran suicide, and let's hope that recommends the necessary changes to ensure that our servicemen and women are given the respect that they thoroughly deserve. And if anything in this podcast has made you want to reach out and speak to somebody, there's always Lifeline, 13 11 14. 13 11 14 is that number for Lifeline. Well, Dragons, Roosters, Storm, Rabbitohs, you mentioned the Warriors and Titans on Anzac Day. We've got the Sea Eagles and the Eels in Friday night footy. The Raiders and the Sharks on Sunday on Channel 9. Some really good games to look forward to in round number 8, Bill.
And only 3 days away. Thursday's not that far away, and we've got 3 games. So 2 live and free on Channel 9, and looking forward to Anzac Day first and foremost, and then a bit of footy in the afternoon.
Great stuff. Good to be back, mate, and thanks to Salty again for doing a brilliant job over the last couple of weeks. Isn't he looking good too? The weight loss program, unbelievable. The Salt Man. Good on you, Billy. Have a great week, mate, and we'll talk to you again on Anzac Day.
Thanks, Levy.
There he is, Billy Slater. This has been the Billy Slater Podcast. We do it with the assistance of Ram Trucks, who eat everything else for breakfast. Enjoy Anzac Day, a day to reflect, pause, and commemorate our fallen diggers, but you enjoy your footy right across the weekend.
This year, NRL on 9 is your one-stop shop for all footy.
That's right, Freddie. Not about the highlights. Action. 7 days a week.
Billy and Gus Podcast, get that on your drive on the way home. Immortal Behaviour. Grab a seat on the couch for that. And, of course, my favourite, Freddie and the Owner.
The best footy brains, the biggest games.
Don't trust the algorithm. Subscribe to NRL on 9 and get all your entertainment there.